What's up, everybody? It's your man J Rock, and I am coming at you with another episode of the J Rock Show. And I am joined again by my co-host Siege. How are we doing today, my man?
Oh man, we're living. It's Friday, ready for the weekend once again. Got some good games in this week. Season's really heating up. I think it's officially time we can stop saying it's early and start judging things based off what's happening. But that's beside the point. What do you got for me today, J Rock?
So today we are going to redraft the top 10 of what is arguably one of the worst draft classes of all time in the 2013 NBA draft.
Oh geez. All right. That should be fun. That was an interesting class for sure. You wanna take the first pick or should I?
Uh, you take the first pick. So you're Cleveland on the clock. First pick. Who are you taking?
I mean, knowing what we know now, there's a very obvious first pick in this draft, and that's the Greek Freak. That's Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, it's really not close. That's the obvious first pick here.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, look at like you have Kyrie at this point. I mean, you'll take best talent whatever you can get. And I mean, I am.
It's certainly better than Anthony Bennett. That we
Oh
know
my!
for sure.
I will never understand Anthony Bennett number one overall. I will never understand it. Sure,
Yeah.
he was okay in college, but I've never been able to get over that.
He was supposed to be Zion before Zion, not quite as much hype, but that was kind of the archetype he was supposed to be, and he just was not it. He just was
Not
not
at
it.
all. Wasn't he was out in like 2 years, wasn't he?
I think he logged officially like 4 years in the league, but he only played 151 games in those
Yeah,
4 years. So
yeah, it was something.
yeah,
And I also agree with you. I think I'm gonna go Giannis with that first pick, and I still think if you're Cleveland, that what was it the year after that, or no, was it? You still find a way to get LeBron the year after that, or whatnot. I still
yeah,
think they'd find a way to get that done.
agreed.
So with the number two pick, Orlando, who are you taking with the number two pick?
I think with a draft class like this, knowing what we know now, you go best available at this point. I know they originally took Oladipo, but I think here you go with CJ McCollum. He's superstar might be a strong word, but he's a star. He's superstar adjacent, incredible scorer. Hard pick to make, really undersized coming out of Lehigh, but had that crazy upset over Duke. I mean, and again, knowing what we know now, I think there's a couple guys you might be able to argue, but I think CJ McCollum's the pick here.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I went with McCollum as well, and honestly, I kind of went back and forth, keeping him or between him and Oladipo, and it's like Oladipo's been a solid role player, like starting two for several years, but I mean CJ Mc-
When he's healthy, yeah.
CJ McCollum's been a consistent 18, 19 a guy for longer than that, so I mean that's a no brainer if you ask me.
Yeah, I would agree. And then who
Number
was who was the third in that draft? Washington?
Washington with the third pick.
I really don't want to take this guy because I don't like him. I don't like his play. Um, but I think he's the pick, knowing what we know now. I think it's Rudy Gobert.
Okay, okay.
I don't know. Again, I don't like him, but trying to remove my bias and just pick the best guy available who I think would have worked well in Washington at the time. They, yeah, it's Rudy Gobert. It's Rudy Gobert.
All right, all right. Yeah, and I think at the three with me, Washington, I'm going to stick with Otto Porter Jr. there. Sure, he hasn't lived up to the number three pick standards, but he was still a solid role player, very solid for, a number of teams. And I think if you look at what Washington's roster situation was at that time, you had a young potential superstar backcourt in John Wall and Bradley Beal. You had a little bit of a veteran front court with guys like Nene and Emeka Okafor. So you could have gone with I could go with the young rim protector here, but I'm going to stick with Otto Porter Jr. because I think a more pertinent need in my eyes would have been a wing player, and I think Otto Porter Jr. was in a very weak draft the best available in that class or in that position group.
I don't hate the pick. I don't hate the pick. I think of the wings available, he's one of the better ones, so I can live with it. All right. So who do we got it for?
At 4, we got the Charlotte Bobcats.
Ooh, back in the Bobcat days. I know they still had Kemba. I know they had just drafted Michael Kidd Gilchrist, who didn't work out so well. Gerald Henderson. So Ben Gordon, they had a lot of guards. They had a lot of guards on that team. So I think this team goes either a big man or a wing here. This I think is where I'm gonna say they go Otto Porter Jr. Because again, did he have a sensational career? No, but he had some years as a really good wing, and he's still playing, still doing a decent job. So I think this is where I'm saying Otto Porter Jr. goes just to fit that need. They've still got a couple bigs there in Charlotte at the time with Hayward, Biombo, Tyrus Tractor, Trailer Thomas, a couple guys who they probably still had hope for. So I don't think they go big. I think they go with a wing and Otto Porter Jr. here.
All right, yeah. And obviously because I went Otto Porter at the 3, I'm gonna go Rudy Gobert at the 4. You could, that's another one like you said, like Washington, where you could have gone one of two ways, best available amongst your needs. You could have gone either. I mean, you could go either way with that.
Absolutely. And then five was Phoenix, yeah?
5 was Phoenix. Yep.
This one's interesting to me. They had an interesting roster at that point. Who did they take originally?
They originally took Alex Len.
Okay. He had not a great career, but not a terrible one.
Respectable.
The NBA. If you can have a couple of years of decent production, you can. Even recently, he was doing something decent. But I think with the roster they had, they did need a big. But they had Luis Scola on that roster, if I remember correctly. Yes. And they had PJ Tucker, who at the time was playing as a guard, kind of a wing, which we know wouldn't last. But they also had my guy Marcin Gortat, who I love, the Polish Hammer. So if I'm them, I'm not taking a big. I'm probably going with a little bit of backcourt help. Yes, they had Goran Dragic, and I think they had like Sebastian Telfair. So they had some guys, but they were weak at the guard to me. So I think they go Dennis Schroeder here.
Okay. Dennis Schroeder, I believe to this point he is 14 a game actually on the dot. Okay. I knew he was.
He's had a great career as a role player.
Yeah, he's had to have been in that teens range, and this was one I kind of went back and forth on, between Steven Adams and Schroeder, actually, believe it or not. And the more I think about it, I think I'm gonna go with Schroeder too, because Phoenix roster at this point was in a very interesting position because they were a kind of young but not so young team, but they didn't have a lot of true veterans on that roster. Like, the only veterans they really had on that roster were Jermaine O'Neal and Sebastian Telfair. And the next guy who had been in the league the longest after that was Shannon Brown, who'd only been in for 6 years. And everybody else was underneath that. So, interesting situation when you look at it. And, like you said, at the guard spot, you had PJ Tucker, who was going into his second or third year in the league, and you had Kendall Marshall and Deontay Garrett, who were rookies the year before. So, yeah, I think you go with Dennis Schroeder, get some more development potential in that backcourt.
I would agree. And 6, I'll do this one because I remember this pick. The Hornets, they originally took Nerlens Noel out of Kentucky, which at the time was a great pick, and I actually loved what Nerlens Noel did with his career. He was fine for a while. But when you look back on it, maybe they didn't trust that Anthony Davis was going to be as much of a superstar as he was, but they already had him on the roster. They had Ryan Anderson, who I actually loved, but they didn't. They were right to take a big there. They had they needed a lot of help everywhere, if I'm going to be honest. So I think this is kind of one of those situations where they take the best available on the board. And to me, the player who could have the most impact for them, knowing what we know now, would be Tim Hardaway Jr.
Okay. I like that. Where did Tim Hardaway Jr. actually originally end up going? I don't off the top of my head.
He went at the 24th pick to 24. The Knicks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went a little ways down there. Yeah. Yeah, obviously, knowing what we know now, I mean, like you said, obviously they probably didn't know, Anthony Davis would be develop into what he did. So for me, this one's a tough one. This one is a tough one for me. And you know what? I'm gonna go with Steven Adams. For some reason, in that situation, I like pairing him next to Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to score a lot of points. He can be that rough and tumble, no nonsense, rebounding big, kind of let Davis do his thing. So I'd go Steven Adams if I'm New Orleans here.
All right, that was kind of my other option between everyone that was there, but I ended up. I think they just needed the scoring help. So, but I like that. I like that. Who do we got next?
At 7, so that was 6. At 7, we've got Charlotte.
Ooh, Charlotte. At 7, we have Charlotte. No, at 7 we
Or
have
Sacramento.
Sacramento, I believe. Yeah.
Sacramento, my bad.
All good. So this is an interesting Sacramento team. I know they had DeMarcus Cousins, who was an absolute force. Tyreek Evans was already on that team. No, he didn't last long, but he was really good when he was there. They were solid on bigs. They were solid on guards. Isaiah Thomas was playing there at the time and balling out. Jimmer Fredette was there, who didn't end up being so good. But I don't think they go guard here. But I don't necessarily think they go big man either. I think they're looking for a wing contribution. And I think they take one of the only guys other than Giannis who is a champion in this draft since they've been drafted. And I think they go with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who has made a career of being one of the better 3-and-D players in the league. I think he helps them on the wing next to Isaiah Thomas, Tyreek Evans, whoever else, and Boogie at the 5. And I think Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I'm honestly surprised in this redraft that he fell as far as he did, because he, other than Giannis and maybe CJ McCollum, I think he's had maybe the most successful career of anyone on this draft list.
Indeed. And I think I'm going to rock with KCP here as well, just on longevity alone.
Yep.
So at 8, we got Detroit, and we still got Oladipo on the board.
Oladipo still is on the board, and I think for reason I would still take the guys I took above him.
Right.
But this Pistons roster now. What's interesting to me about this Pistons roster is this is back when they had a front court that was one of the better ones in the league, with Greg Monroe, the Moose, and Andre Drummond playing at kind of his peak, even though he's playing out of his mind right now. Rebound percentage-wise this season, he's actually got the highest in NBA history. If he keeps it up, he's going to break a record at whatever age he is now playing for the Bulls. But Andre Drummond was a rookie this year, the year before this draft anyways. But so they've got Drummond, who's looking good. They've got Greg Monroe, who is a veteran, not a veteran. I mean, he was 2 years in on the league, but they've got their young front court. It was actually a well-rounded roster. They had Tayshaun Prince already. Still, I shouldn't say already. Still, Villanueva. So they had their veterans. Jose Calderon running the point. Chris Middleton was actually also a rookie on that roster that year. We know how he would pan out, but at the time maybe not so much. Brandon Knight was there. So I think with what they have, they're looking wing, but I think they're also kind of just looking best available at this point. So I think they kind of bolster that front court, and I think, you know what, I'm going to switch up actually. They've got a young front court already. Their guards are a little bit older for the most part, other than our guy Brandon Knight, who was great at the beginning of his career. So I think they go with a younger guard. And maybe this is out of pocket. Oladipo has had a longer career than this guy. But let's not forget that even though this guy didn't pan out, his rookie year, he was sensational. Won Rookie of the Year in this draft class. I'm going to go Michael Carter-Williams. This guy was sensational his first year. Didn't have the longevity, but I think you get him that 1 year, see if maybe you can change the way that he was handled and the way he was developed. It turned into not a great career. I mean, look, his first game ever, he had almost a quadruple-double against the Big Three Heat. And I think it was the Big Three Heat's first year, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to go Michael Carter-Williams here.
Okay. I like that pick. And let's not forget, he was originally drafted to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia was just an absolute mess.
Exactly.
So, you know what? The more I think about it, I like that pick too. I like that pick. I'll go Michael Carter-Williams there too. Because, he showed a lot of potential. I think he did end up winning Rookie of the Year that year, I believe.
He did.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. Could be, but I don't think I am. And then at 9, J-Rock, I know we got the Timberwolves, which was an interesting team at the time. The year before, they made some interesting picks. Missed out on some great prospects the year before. But this was back in the Kevin Love being a cornerstone of the franchise days. I mean, he was an animal monster. He was a walking 2020 almost. Had Pekovic next to him in the front court. Pekovic was a very serviceable five. Ricky Rubio had kind of shown up, was supposed to be their franchise point guard. They had Brandon Roy on the roster, even though he was dealing with injuries, but he's, still Brandon Roy, Andre Kirilenko. So really, for me, this team had their starting five kind of ironed out. They weren't looking for a superstar pick here. They were looking for a serviceable role player, somebody who can come off the bench, contribute. So this is, and I still haven't put Steven Adams in here because I'm picking situationally for a lot of these teams, but I think they don't go Steven Adams here because of the size that they have. I think you go Oladipo with this pick.
Yeah, agreed. I think this would have been an ideal situation, I feel like, for a guy like Oladipo coming out of Indiana, the way he did, and with Minnesota obviously having their starting five, set in stone. This would have been a ideal situation really for anybody coming off the bench and just kind of easing into it, not having to be a keystone kind of piece.
Agreed. You don't got to be that guy. You just got to play the game. So I think that's a better situation. He's best available at this point to me. Well, for the most part, at the position he plays. So I think that's where they go.
All right, and now for the last pick of this redraft special, we've got the Portland Trailblazers, who originally took CJ McCollum. Who do you got?
So this one's interesting to me because they still had LaMarcus Aldridge, who was pretty much in or entering his prime at this point. Offensive savant, just could score in any which way. I think what they do here, they go who I think is easily the best available on the board at this point. I've been ignoring him for a while, but I think they bolster that front court and that defense in the front court with this guy. I think they go Steven Adams here because CJ McCollum's obviously already off the board. So I think they go Steven Adams.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't think people expected Steven Adams back then to be what he is now, but
Nope.
Dude's been a solid, 4 or 5 kind of player for a number of years. I mean, he is definitely one dude who I would not want to piss off.
He's one of the scarier dudes in the league for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. So look, I think I'm also going to go front court here for Portland. I mean, CJ McCollum off the board. I mean, not a lot of, knowing what we know now, not a ton of scorers, that were consistent and reliable left to go. So I'm going to go down to what was originally the 22nd pick, and I'm going to go Mason Plumlee out of Duke. Still in the league at this point. He's averaged a solid 8.5 and 7 boards a game. Very respectable numbers. I mean, I don't think anybody expected him to be a superstar coming out of Duke, but very serviceable numbers, for a big man who's been in the league that long. So I'm going to go Plumlee out of Duke.
I like that pick. Plumlee's great. He's still doing well in the league. He's a good, solid piece.
This 2013 draft class overall, and I mean, when it starts at the top and knowing what we know now, obviously when it starts with Anthony Bennett, we were in for a mess with this class.
Absolutely. I mean, not a great class. A few guys who made good careers out of being a role player, but not a superstar class by any means.
Yeah, without a doubt. Alrighty, well, that's going to do it for today's episode of the J-Rock Show. As always, Siege, thank you for joining me.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
All right, everyone. Make sure you tune in next week for another edition of the J-Rock Show. And as always, see the game, be the game.